The Liberal Labour Minister Steve McKinnon, Justin Trudeau, and the Liberal Party have decided to force yet another strong union back to work through legislation. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Liberal Labour Minister Steve McKinnon announced that he was going to get the Canadian Industrial Relations Board that has the authority to put people back to work through binding arbitration, as in the case of the Teamsters for the trains and in the longshoremen for the harbors, for the ports, that he's already done 2 times. This party for the people, this government that says that they believe in the right to strike, keeps forcing all of these unions back to work instead of giving and taking away their negotiation power. They only have one power, right? They have the power to not do their job. That's the only influence that they have. And when you rob them of that, you are robbing them of their basic tenement, their basic ability to get you to understand that they have, like, to get your attention. And he's going to tell you how, he did it all for Canadians and that there was no choice in the matter. And it's all just a way to try to gaslight you into thinking that they're doing something that is different than what they've already done to these strong unions, reduce them to nothing, to a shell of themselves, and force them to go back to work no matter what.
Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers remain unable to reach an agreement. But able to show any progress towards an agreement, the federal mediator has now informed me that the negotiations between both parties are now, in fact, going in the wrong direction. So I'm here today to announce that I am applying a solution to promote conditions favorable to the settlement of this labor dispute and protect the interests of all Canadians. Today I've used my powers under the Canada Labour Code. It is my view and the view of the FMCS that the parties are at an impasse. I have asked the Canada Industrial Relations Board, if they also determine that there is an impasse, to order Canada Post and all employees represented by CUPW to resume and continue their operations and duties, and to extend the terms of the existing collective agreements until May 22nd, 2025. During this time, an Industrial Inquiry Commission will be established. Mr. William Kaplan will fill the role of commissioner. He is an experienced negotiator and has a clear understanding of Canada Post and its union. The commissioner will be tasked with examining the structural issues preventing the resolution of the current labor dispute. The IIC will be required to submit a report to me and the parties outlining their findings and recommendations by May 15th, 2025. The review could provide the basis of a path forward on how to amend the collective agreements and clarify the structures, rights, and responsibilities of the parties in collective bargaining. The inquiry will have a broad scope, as it will examine the entire structure of Canada Post from both a customer and business model standpoint, considering the challenging business environment now facing Canada Post.
Well, there's some top-tier gaslighting, right? Oh, this time it's, I'm just going to use them to put a pause on the arbitration, and we're going to put together a committee and a commissioner. We're going to spend millions of dollars on renting space and providing lunches and paying salaries so that we can get them to stall and go back to work for 6 more months while we pretend to listen to them, and then we will draft, and then we will do binding arbitration in May. And you could be sitting there asking yourself, well, why would they need to push it for so far? Well, I'll tell you why. Because first, they think that they can catch up to Christmas, which they will not be able to do. And I'll get into that. Then they will have Valentine's Day, which is a big card mailing day. Then they will have tax time, which is a massive amount of mail moving through the system. And then comes Mother's Day. And once that gets out of the way, they're like, okay, then we can bring everybody back to normal, because all that comes next is, Father's Day, and that's it until the fall, really. And, for heavy postal traffic is what I mean. However, he wants you to believe that by putting this commissioner in place, he's not initiating binding arbitration. Let me show you exactly what he says.
So this is the third time this year, if you might follow up, that you've had to intervene in this way. Are you worried about what these interventions say about Canada's overarching labor climate, and how this labor unrest might play globally to Canada's reputation as a reliable trade and business partner.
This is the first time I've had to intervene in this way. And we've come up with what I think is an imaginative proposal to...
Saw that smug smile on his face, right? Well, it's the first time I'm doing it this way. It's like, yo, bud, we all see what it is, right? It's all you're doing is postponing the binding arbitration until May. That's all you're doing. You're forcing them to work for a contract that they didn't want to work for. You're forcing them to go back into conditions that they didn't want. It's not like these postal workers wanted to go on strike. They were left with no choice. They had no other choice. They've been trying to negotiate, and the companies are again coming to the table in bad faith, just like they did with the trains and just like they did with the ports. And this corporate government, the Liberal Party, is using their power to force everything down their throats. And they're trying to do it under the guise of it, oh, well, the northern people, the northern communities rely heavily on the newspaper, on the postal workers. So if they rely so heavily on the postal workers, let's hammer out the deal. Let's get it done. No. They're not doing that, right? They're just saying, oh, well, we'll stall, we'll force them to work until May. And if they don't like it, then they can do whatever they want because we'll have gotten out of them what we wanted to get out of them. In the meantime, they've already laid off a whole bunch of postal workers. I think that the postal workers are probably staring down the barrel of AI taking a lot of their jobs. I don't know for sure, but that makes a lot of sense to me when you consider the nature of the job and how easy it is for systems to read the writing nowadays.
Just to dive into that a little bit more, you talk about the mediator saying that the negotiations were going in the wrong direction, which is different language than we've heard in the past as far as the talks going nowhere. Can you elaborate a little bit more as far as what that wrong direction was, and particularly what tipped the needle for you to come to this decision at this point?
Well, I'm not at the table, so I can't comment on, nor is it my role to comment on this respective offers and informal discussions at the table. But suffice to say that positions appeared to have hardened, and it became very clear to me that we were in a total impasse.
So what do you care if they're at an impasse, MP McKinnon? If they're at such an impasse, then you should have gone in and given them binding arbitration. Isn't that what you want to say? Of course, you can't do that, because then you wouldn't be able to stand up in the House of Commons and gaslight Canadians into pretending that you're some sort of a, union party. And we all know you're not. Everybody knows that the Liberal Party stands up there all the time and says, oh, big business and government need to join together. That's the Marxist model, right? So we know that you're not, and I don't know why you just don't get out of the way. You know what? How about you let us have an election, and the next government will fix this strike between the postal workers and their corporation. Maybe if you would just do that, it wouldn't be your problem anymore, and you wouldn't have to worry about embarrassing yourself and embarrassing Canada and lying through your teeth, because this is three strong unions that you have stripped of their power. Their ability to go on strike is the only power that they have. There's nothing else. And now you have taken that ability away from them. And that's wrong. I mean, you should have fixed this problem. You should have anticipated that it was coming. You should have got out in front of it instead of always playing catch up.
To look around the world, to the UK, to France, to the United States, where significant and major labor disputes have and are ongoing. Reputationally, what I would say is it's actually a sign of strength that we have collective agreements being signed all the time.
Sign of strength? Really? You think forcing your middle-class workers back to work is a sign of strength? I'm so tired of hearing the Liberal Party try to compare my life to the rest of the world. The rest of the world is not where I live. I live here in Canada, and I don't want to be compared to the rest of the world anymore. If you want me to believe that because somebody else doesn't have something, I should be happy not having something too, then that's just the opposite of progress. Those people are all trying to get to North America because they don't have anything. So stop trying to tell me that, everything is around the world different. I don't care. I don't care. Canada first. I live in Canada. I want to be treated like a Canadian, and I want to worry about what's happening in Canada. And when I get Canada straightened out, then maybe I can worry about what's going on in the rest of the world. But you've turned Canada into such a mess that it's hard to focus on what's going on somewhere else. You can't trust any of the newspapers. So I think that it's time you just stop telling yourself that we're going to be compared to the rest of the world and start to understand that we want things to be different in Canada. Not the same as the rest of the world. We want it to be different. No matter what you got to tell yourself, understand that.
So for clarity, I understand the commissioner part, but how are you getting Canada Post workers, as you said, back to work next week? Can you explain to Canadians what that looks like?
Yes, so I have directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to determine if they see the prospect of a negotiated settlement in the near term, the very near term. If not, if they reach the same conclusion that I have reached quite conclusively, then they shall emit a directive to resume activities at Canada Post and extend the collective agreements till May 22nd.
The Liberal Party is still in court with the Teamsters and the longshoremen over their binding arbitration already. But what he just described is no different than binding arbitration. He's using his court to force them to go back to work. The fact that he's just saying, oh, we'll put a stall on the actual arbitration until May means nothing. It's just delaying. It's just kicking the can down the road. It doesn't change the fact that he's using his court to force these people to go back to work. No matter how many fancy little words you want to try and put in front of it, the fact of the matter is that all of those words are a smokescreen for the fact that you're forcing these workers to go back to work against their will in conditions that they are not happy with to save your own skin. Not because you care about what's going on with them, not because you care what's going on with us, but just because you don't want it to look bad. It's telling that they decided to do it one day before this GST scam, right? That they want you to think that everything will flow smoothly over the Christmas holiday. And what they don't tell you is that a lot of countries are rated. There's a few things that every country has to have to be rated in certain places along the economic or the development scale. One is a functioning postal service. The other is a functioning airline. Now they leave that out of their little discussion, but the reality, the truth of it is that if the postal organizations stay closed throughout the Christmas holiday, even though they waited too long, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to make any differences in the next 10 days. It just means people are going to get a lot of Christmas presents late, or checks in the mail, or Christmas cards, or whatever it may be. But they needed to have this in place for the 14th because they're going home. They're going back to their constituents next week, and they won't be back until sometime in January. Pretty deep into January, if memory serves. And they're desperate to save the economy through any means. And that means throwing the Postal Service under the bus. That's what they'll do. Of course, that's not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. And now, with any luck, the Postal Union will vote for not the Liberals next time. Because clearly the Liberals and the NDP, who had an opportunity to make a change last week and did nothing, and who now is going to run around going, oh, I support the unions, even though this is 3 in a row that have been forced back to work and there is no support from Jagmeet Singh, just a bunch of empty platitudes. Let's be smart with our vote. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I would encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I will talk to you next time.